Welcome to Sleepy Japan. Tonight, we drift together into a quiet story from Japan, a tale shaped by stillness, tradition, and the soft rhythm of night. Before we begin, take a slow breath in and exhale gently. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your hands rest. Let your thoughts begin to settle as the world around you softens into calm. Imagine a peaceful evening, light from a simple paper lantern drifting across the room, a cool breeze moving just beyond the window. And in the distance, a single temple bell echoing through the night. Each sound carries you deeper into rest. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to be. Just breathe and let the night open gently around you. Feel peace moving through your body, from your chest to your shoulders, to the quiet rhythm of your breath. The world outside grows silent. Only the sound of your breathing remains, and the soft promise of dreams waiting to unfold. Now, as the moon rises above the hills and the night deepens, let us begin tonight's story. The 47 Rōnin. In the days when mist rose from mountain valleys and temple bells marked the hours of dawn, there lived a lord named Asano Takumi no Kami, whose castle stood beside the sea in the province of Harima. His home was built upon a hill where pine trees whispered their ancient songs and waves spoke softly to the shore below. In those times, the great Shogun ruled from Yedo, and the emperor, distant and sacred, dwelt in his palace at Kyoto, wrapped in ceremony and silence. It was a time of careful ceremony, of ritual and respect, when every gesture carried meaning, and honor was more precious than life itself. And in that time, there came a day when an imperial ambassador, a messenger from the emperor's court, travelled the long road to Yedo, bearing words from the sacred capital. The shogun, in his wisdom, appointed 2 lords to receive this honoured guest with proper ceremony. One was Asano Takumi no Kami, whose heart was gentle, whose manner was humble, who ruled his people with kindness and care. The other was a lord called Kame-sama, a man of fiercer spirit, quick to anger, but loyal to his duty nonetheless. To teach them the ancient ceremonies, the proper words, the precise gestures required for such an occasion, a high official was appointed. His name was Kira Kotsuke no Suke. Now this Kotsuke no Suke, it must be said, was a man whose heart had grown cold, whose eyes saw only gold and advantage, who measured worth in the weight of gifts received. Each day, Takumi no Kami and Kame-sama went to the castle to receive instruction, walking through corridors where sunlight fell in slanted bars upon the polished floors. And each day they brought presents, as custom demanded, as honor required, tokens of respect for their teacher's guidance. But Kotsuke no Suke, looking upon these gifts, deemed them insufficient, unworthy, not grand enough for one of his position. And so, a darkness grew within his heart, and he began to treat the 2 lords, not with the courtesy their rank deserved, but with subtle mockery, with quiet scorn. He would speak of things they did not know, then laugh when they could not answer. He would demonstrate a gesture once, then sigh with impatience when they asked again. Takumi no Kami, remembering his duty, bore these insults with patient grace, bowing low, speaking soft words, swallowing his pride like bitter tea. But Kame-sama, whose blood ran hotter, felt rage building within him, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. One evening, when the day's instruction had ended, and the shadows grew long in the castle halls, Kame-sama returned to his own palace, his face dark with unexpressed fury. He summoned his counselors, his trusted advisors, men who had served his family for generations. And when they gathered in the quiet room, he spoke in a voice trembling with anger. This Kotsuke no Suke has insulted me beyond bearing. He has mocked Takumi no Kami as well. This cannot be endured. This will not stand. Tomorrow, when I go to court, I will cut him down. The councillors looked at one another, fear and concern passing between them like wind. For they knew, as all men knew, that to draw a sword within the castle walls was to invite death, disgrace, and ruin, not only for oneself, but for one's entire house. One counsellor, a man of great wisdom and years, saw that his lord's mind was set, that words of caution would fall like rain upon stones too hot to receive them. And so he bowed and spoke with care. My lord, your servant will make all preparations. If this man must die, then he shall die, and we shall stand beside you, whatever comes. Kame-sama, hearing this, felt some measure of calm, and he dismissed his counsellors and tried to sleep, though sleep would not come, for his thoughts were all of vengeance and blood. But the wise counsellor, when he returned home, sat in his quiet garden, listening to the night, thinking of all that would be lost if his lord followed this path of rage. His master's life, his family's honour, the livelihoods of hundreds of retainers, the peace of the province they protected, all would vanish, like mist before the sun. And then a thought came to him, soft as moonlight on water. Kotsuke no Suke, for all his rank and position, was known throughout Yedo as a miser, a man who counted coins in his sleep, who treasured gold above dignity. Perhaps, the counsellor thought, what could not be bought with honour might yet be purchased with silver. He rose, moving quickly now, and gathered all the money he could find, his own savings, his family's reserves, 1,000 ounces of silver, gleaming in the lamplight. And in the deep of night, when honest folk were sleeping, he rode through the empty streets to Kotsuke no Suke's palace, carrying his fortune in a wooden chest. The guards at the gate, seeing him approach, called out, "Who comes at this late hour?" And the counsellor answered, with humble words, "I am a retainer of Lord Kame. I bring a gift of gratitude for the patient instruction my master has received." When the guards saw the silver, their eyes grew wide, bright as lanterns, and they hurried to wake their master, stumbling over themselves in their haste. Kotsuke no Suke, roused from sleep, came shuffling forth, and when he saw the gift, his face transformed, like winter yielding to spring. "How thoughtful, how generous," he murmured, his fingers reaching out, almost trembling, to touch the cool metal. Tell your master that tomorrow I shall instruct him with the greatest care, with all my knowledge. He shall have no cause for complaint." The counsellor, hiding his relief, bowed low and took his leave, and rode home through the darkness, feeling lighter than he had in days. The next morning, when the sun rose, painting the castle walls with gold and rose, Kame-sama arrived, his hand upon his sword, his mind fixed on one purpose only. But when Kotsuke no Suke greeted him, everything had changed. The official bowed deeply, spoke with courtesy, his manner warm where it had been cold, his words helpful where they had been cruel. "My lord Kame, you honor us with your early arrival. Please, forgive my previous rudeness. I am by nature somewhat ill-tempered, but I meant no disrespect to your lordship." And Kame-sama, bewildered by this transformation, felt his anger draining away, like water from a broken cup. His counselor, standing nearby, caught his eye and gave the smallest nod, the slightest smile, and understanding passed between them. Thus was Kame-sama saved from ruin by the wisdom of one faithful retainer who valued his lord's life more than 1,000 ounces of silver. But Takumi no Kami, who had sent no present, who trusted in duty and honor alone, found no such reprieve from mockery. Day after day, Kotsuke no Suke's insults continued, growing sharper, more deliberate, like thorns pressed slowly into tender skin. Takumi no Kami bore it all in silence, his face composed, his manner calm, though beneath the surface something began to crack. For even the gentlest spirit has its limits. Even the deepest well can run dry. Then came the day, the terrible day, when all restraint finally broke. The morning had been long, filled with ceremony, and Takumi no Kami stood in the great hall, weary but attentive, awaiting further instruction. Kotsuke no Suke approached him, looked him up and down with undisguised contempt, and then, in front of all the assembled lords, he spoke. "My lord of Takumi, I see that the ribbon of my sock has come undone. Be so good as to tie it for me." The room fell silent. Every eye turned to watch, every breath was held. For all present understood, this was no simple request, but a studied humiliation, a deliberate degradation of a nobleman's honor. Takumi no Kami stood very still, his hands clenched at his sides, but he remembered his duty. He remembered the emperor's ambassador. He remembered that he was here to serve. And so, slowly, he knelt. He knelt upon the polished floor, and, with trembling fingers, tied the ribbon of Kotsuke no Suke's sock. But when he rose, Kotsuke no Suke laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. "How clumsy you are, like a peasant. You cannot even tie a simple ribbon properly. Anyone can see you are nothing but a country boor, ignorant of the ways of Yedo." And with that, he turned away, his laughter echoing in the silent hall. Something broke within Takumi no Kami's heart. All the accumulated insults, all the swallowed pride, all the patient endurance, shattered like ice beneath a stone. "Stop." His voice was quiet, but it carried. Kotsuke no Suke turned, surprised. "What did you say?" And Takumi no Kami drew his dirk. Time seemed to slow, the blade flashing in the morning light, as he struck at Kotsuke no Suke's head. But the official's ceremonial cap, padded and thick, deflected the blow, leaving only a shallow cut upon his forehead. Kotsuke no Suke cried out and fled, running through the halls like a frightened animal. And Takumi no Kami pursued him, blind with rage, striking again, his blade biting deep into a wooden pillar. Then guards rushed forward, officials shouted, and a brave officer named Kajikawa Yosobe threw himself between the two men, holding Takumi no Kami back, while Kotsuke no Suke escaped to safety. And in that moment, as the fury drained from him, Takumi no Kami understood what he had done. He had drawn a weapon within the castle walls. He had committed an unforgivable offence, and the price, he knew, would be his life. He let the dirk fall from his hand, the sound of it striking the floor, final as a closing door. Within hours, a council was convened, grave men in formal robes, debating what all already knew. The law was ancient. The law was clear. To raise a hand in violence within the palace was to forfeit everything. The sentence was delivered at sunset, as shadows lengthened across the courtyard. Asano Takumi no Kami must perform harakiri. His castle must be confiscated. His family name must be extinguished. His retainers must become masterless men. Rōnins, waves upon the sea, adrift. And so it was done. In a quiet room, as evening fell, Takumi no Kami prepared himself. Dressed in white, the colour of death, he faced his end with dignity. His hand was steady as he took the blade. His voice was calm as he spoke his final words, and with one swift movement, he opened his belly, completing the ritual. His spirit departed, rising like smoke, leaving behind a silence and 47 broken hearts. For in the castle of Akko, by the sea, his retainers received the news, like a thunderbolt, like an earthquake. Their lord was dead. Their home was forfeit. Their purpose was gone. Among them was a man named Oishi Kuranosuké, the chief counselor, a man of deep wisdom, who had not been in Yedo when disaster struck. When he heard the news, he wept, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet grief of one who understands that some losses can never be repaired. And as he wept, a thought took root, growing slowly, inevitably, like a seed planted in fertile darkness. Their lord had died unavenged. Kotsuke no Suke still lived, still breathed, still walked beneath the same sky. This could not stand. Kuranosuke called together the retainers, all who remained, all who had not yet scattered, and in a quiet room, with candles burning low, he spoke of vengeance. Our master died with his purpose unfinished. His enemy lives, unpunished. We cannot call ourselves his faithful servants if we do not complete what he began. 46 men, hearing these words, felt something kindle within them, a flame of purpose, fierce and bright. They made an oath together, each man placing his hand upon the others, swearing to avenge their lord's death or die in the attempt. But they all knew, that Kotsuke no Suke would be watching, waiting for exactly this response. His house would be guarded, his person protected. To strike directly would be to fail utterly. And so, Kuranosuke devised a plan, terrible in its patience, brilliant in its deception. They would scatter, disguise themselves, and most important of all, they would make the enemy believe that they had given up, forgotten, moved on. The 47 men separated, each going his own way. Some became merchants, others craftsmen. They disappeared into the great flow of life, like drops returning to the ocean. And Kuranosuke himself, went to the ancient capital, to Kyoto, where he built a small house in the district called Yamashina. And there he began his greatest performance. He frequented the pleasure quarters, spending his days in wine shops and tea houses, his nights with courtesans and entertainers, laughing too loudly, drinking too deeply, becoming a figure of pity and scorn. "Look at Oishi Kuranosuké," people would whisper. Once a great counselor, now a drunkard, unable to face his shame, he drowns himself in sake. And this was exactly what Kuranosuké intended. For Kotsuke no Suke, fearful of revenge, had sent spies to watch the former retainers, and these spies sent back regular reports. Kuranosuké has given himself to debauchery. He spends his days drunk in the gutters. He has bought a concubine from the pleasure houses. He shows no sign of purpose or honor. And Kotsuke no Suke, reading these reports, felt his fear beginning to ease. One day, Kuranosuke lay in the street, insensible with drink, sleeping in his own filth, and the people passing by stepped over him, shaking their heads in disgust. A samurai from Satsuma, a warrior of fierce pride, stopped and looked down at the sleeping man, and recognition dawned in his eyes. This is Oishi Kuranosuké, who was counselor to Asano Takumi no Kami, and he lies here, drunk, dishonored, without the courage to avenge his lord. And in his contempt, the Satsuma man spat upon Kuranosuke's face and trod upon him as he passed. Kuranosuke did not stir. He lay there in the dust and shame, enduring even this, all for the sake of the greater purpose. When spies reported this incident to Kotsuke no Suke, he laughed with relief. A man who would bear such shame, who would let himself be spat upon, such a man has no vengeance left in him. And so, slowly, carefully, the guard around his house was reduced, the vigilance relaxed, the watchfulness eased. The trap was closing. But Kuranosuke's wife, who knew him better than anyone, came to him one evening, her face drawn with worry. "My husband, I understand why you began this, but you have gone too far. You are becoming what you pretend to be. Please, I beg you, stop this destruction." Kuranosuke looked at her with cold eyes. "Then leave. If you cannot bear to watch, I will divorce you, send you away, and find myself a younger woman who will not trouble me with complaints." His wife gasped as if struck, tears spilling down her cheeks. 20 years I have been your wife. I have borne your children, stood beside you. You cannot mean these words. But he would not relent, and so she was sent away, back to her family, taking 2 of their children with her. Only their eldest son, Oishi Chikara, remained at his father's side, understanding, as his mother could not, that this sacrifice was necessary. And when Kotsuke no Suke heard of this, he laughed again, longer this time. A man who divorces his faithful wife to buy a concubine with the last of his money, such a man thinks only of pleasure, not revenge. The final guards were dismissed. The house stood nearly undefended. And in Yedo, the other 46 men were quietly gathering intelligence. They had found work near Kotsuke no Suke's palace, as carpenters, as merchants, as servants. They studied the house, learned its layout, noted which retainers were brave, which were weak, where the doors stood, where the rooms lay. And they sent word to Kuranosuké. The time is right. Come now, come quickly. So Kuranosuké left Kyoto in the dead of night, slipping away from the spies who watched him, and journeyed to Yedo, to his destiny. It was the 12th month, deep winter, and snow fell thick upon the city, muffling sound, covering the world in a blanket of white silence. The 47 men gathered in secret, in a quiet place, away from watching eyes, and there they made their final plans. They would divide into 2 groups. Kuranosuké would lead the attack on the front gate. Young Chikara, though only 16, would lead the assault on the back entrance. At midnight, when the city slept, when even the moon was hidden by snow clouds, they would strike. And if they succeeded, if they took the head, they would carry it to Sengakuji Temple and lay it before their master's grave. And then they would wait for the justice they knew must come. They ate a final meal together, simple food, rice and pickles, but it tasted sweeter than any feast, for they were together, bound by purpose, and soon their long wait would be over. Kuranosuké stood, raising his cup, and spoke softly to his companions. Tonight we fulfill our oath. Tonight we honor our Lord. But remember, our enemy is one man only. Do not harm the innocent, the weak, the helpless. Let us be known for justice, not for cruelty. All 46 voices answered as one. We swear it. And then, as midnight approached, they donned their armor, took up their weapons, and stepped out into the snowy night. The wind howled around them, snow stinging their faces like tiny needles. But they moved with purpose, with determination, through the empty streets of sleeping Yedo. When they reached Kotsuke, no Suke's palace, they divided as planned, and Kuranosuke's group approached the front gate. 4 men, carrying rope ladders, scaled the outer wall in silence, dropping down into the courtyard, like shadows falling upon snow. They crept to the guardhouse, where the few remaining guards lay sleeping, and bound them before they could cry out. Please, the guards whispered, terrified. Spare our lives. We will give you the keys. But the guards did not have the keys. They were kept elsewhere, locked away. So the Rōnins took up a heavy mallet, and with swift, powerful blows, shattered the wooden bar that held the gate. The sound echoed in the night, loud as thunder in the quiet snow. At the same moment, at the back of the house, Chikara and his men broke through the rear entrance, and the attack began in earnest. Kuranosuké sent messengers to the neighbouring houses, with a polite and formal message. We are the retainers of Asano Takumi no Kami. We come tonight to avenge our master. We mean no harm to any but our enemy. Please remain calm. Please stay inside. This matter does not concern you. And because Kotsuke no Suke was hated for his greed, his neighbours did not come to his aid. Inside the house, 10 retainers woke, hearing the sounds of breaking wood, and they rushed forth with drawn swords to defend their master's life. The battle was joined. Steel rang against steel. Shouts echoed in the corridors. Blood spattered upon the walls and floors, while outside, snow continued falling, pure and white, covering all. The defenders fought bravely. 3 in particular stood out, men of courage and skill: Kobayashi Heihachi, Waku Handaiyu, Shimizu Ikaku. These three held the doorway to their lord's chamber, and for a time they could not be passed. Kuranosuké, watching from his command post, felt frustration rising like bile. "Did we not swear to die for this cause?" he roared. "And now 3 men hold you back." Then he turned to his son, and his voice grew quiet, terrible. "Chikara, go and face them, and if you cannot defeat them, then die trying." The young man, barely more than a boy, took up his spear without hesitation and advanced on Waku Handayu. The duel was fierce, desperate. Chikara fought with all his strength, but he was young, inexperienced, and slowly, step by step, he was driven back. Out through the corridor they fought, into the garden, through the snow, and then Chikara's foot slipped, and he fell backwards into a pond. The ice-cold water closed over him, and Handayu leapt forward to deliver the killing blow. But as he looked down into the water, searching for his target, Chikara's spear thrust upward, catching him in the leg, and Handayu fell, wounded, gasping. Chikara crawled from the freezing pond, water streaming from his clothes, and with one final strike, ended Handayu's life. Inside, the other 2 defenders had also fallen, and now the way was clear. The Rōnins rushed forward, searching every room, every closet, calling out their enemy's name. But Kotsuke no Suke was nowhere to be found. Panic began to set in among the 47. Had he escaped? Had all this been for nothing? Then Kuranosuké entered his enemy's sleeping chamber and placed his hand upon the quilts. "They are warm," he whispered. "He was here, moments ago. He must still be in the house." With renewed hope, they searched again, pulling down screens, looking behind curtains, until someone noticed a hanging scroll, in the place of honor, slightly askew. Behind it, hidden in the wall, was a hole leading to a small courtyard. A man named Yazuma Jutaro crawled through and found himself in a space containing a shed for storing charcoal and wood. And in that shed, he saw something white, something that moved when his spear touched it. 2 armed men leapt out at him, but his comrades came to his aid, and while they fought the guards, Jutaro entered the shed once more. Again, he saw white cloth and struck with his spear. A cry of pain, human, terrified. He lunged forward and dragged out an old man in a white sleeping robe, wounded in the thigh, trembling with fear. They brought him into the light of lanterns. He was perhaps 60 years old, his face drawn, his breathing shallow, and on his forehead, a scar, old but unmistakable. The scar left by Takumi no Kami's blade. Kira Kotsuke no Suke. Kuranosuké approached and knelt before him, and when he spoke, his voice was respectful, formal. "My lord, we are the retainers of Asano Takumi no Kami. Last year, you and our master had a quarrel. Our master was sentenced to death, while you were permitted to live. This was an injustice, an imbalance, that we are bound by honor to correct." He paused, then continued gently. "We beseech your lordship to perform harakiri, the honorable death. I myself will serve as your second, and when the ritual is complete, we will take your head to our master's grave and make the offering we have promised." But Kotsuke no Suke, shaking with terror, could not speak, could not move. He crouched there, mute as stone. They waited, giving him every chance, but no word came from his lips. At last, Kuranosuké rose, and his face was sad, almost pitying. Then it must be this way. And he drew the dirk, the very blade that Takumi no Kami had used, to open his own belly in death, and with one swift motion, he severed Kotsuke no Suke's head. It was done. The vow was fulfilled. They placed the head in a wooden bucket and carefully extinguished all the fires in the house, lest some spark cause a blaze that might harm the innocent neighbours. And then 47 men, covered in blood and snow, began the long walk to Sengakuji Temple. Dawn was breaking as they walked, the sky turning pearl grey, then rose, and the people of Yedo, waking early, saw the procession and understood. And they did not condemn, they did not fear. Instead, they bowed their heads in respect. They whispered words of praise. See how faithful, see how loyal. Some brought water for the weary men. Some offered rice, though none was accepted, for the Rōnins knew they had hours only, before the law would find them. When they reached Sengakuji, the abbot himself came out to greet them, and he led them, with great solemnity, to the grave of Asano Takumi no Kami. There, beneath the ancient pines, stood the stone marker, where their lord's body lay at rest. They washed the head in the temple well, cleaning away the blood with cold, pure water, and then, with infinite care, they placed it before the grave. Kuranosuké lit the first stick of incense, the smoke rising straight and true into the morning air, and one by one, all 47 men performed the same ritual. They knelt, they prayed, they wept, and felt a peace descending that they had not known for months. It was finished. Kuranosuké gave his remaining money to the abbot and asked him, when the time came, to bury them properly, to tend their graves. And the abbot, with tears in his eyes, promised that it would be so. Within hours, the summons came. The 47 were to appear before the Supreme Court to answer for what they had done. They went without complaint, without resistance, and stood before the assembled governors as the sentence was read. You have broken the law. You have committed violence in the city. You have taken a life without authority. Therefore, you must perform harakiri. Your names will be extinguished. Your properties will be forfeit. The 47 men bowed their heads, accepting the judgment. They had known from the very beginning that this would be the price. They were divided among 4 daimyos to perform the ritual in separate places, and on the appointed day, as snow fell once more upon Yedo, each man faced his death with courage. Young Chikara was only 16, but his hand was steady, his voice was clear as he spoke his final words. And old Kuranosuké, who had planned it all, who had endured shame and loss, who had sacrificed wife and honour and peace for this single purpose, completed his journey with quiet dignity. Their bodies were carried to Sengakuji and buried, as the abbot had promised, in front of their master's tomb. 47 graves in perfect rows, beside the one they had served so faithfully. And when the people heard of this, they came in thousands, bringing flowers, bringing incense, praying at the graves of these loyal men. Even the Satsuma man came, the one who had spat upon Kuranosuké, who had called him coward and fool. He prostrated himself before the grave, and spoke through his tears. I did not know. I did not understand. When I saw you drunk in the street, I thought you had no honor, but you bore my insult, as you bore all insults, for the sake of a greater purpose. Forgive me. Forgive my blindness. And then, drawing his own blade, he opened his belly there before the grave, and died asking pardon. So there are 48 graves at Sengakuji, not 47. 47 who planned the deed, and one who understood it too late. And now, centuries later, the graves remain, tended by careful hands, visited by countless souls, who come to remember what loyalty means, what honor requires, what sacrifice truly is. Green boughs are laid upon the stones, incense smoke rises like prayer, and in the small museum nearby, the relics are preserved, the worn armor, the rusted blades, the letters written in careful script, all testifying to a truth, that some bonds cannot be broken, that some debts must be paid, that faithfulness endures, beyond death, beyond time. And so, the story lives on, told in whispers, told in songs, passed from generation to generation, a tale of winter snow and summer loyalty, of patience and sacrifice and love. For the 47 knew something that the world often forgets. That honor is not a word, but a way of being. That duty is not a burden, but a gift. That true service asks for no reward, except the knowledge that one has lived according to the deepest truth. And now, as night falls once more, and snow begins to fall, soft as cherry blossoms in spring, we can imagine the temple grounds, quiet and peaceful. The graves stand in their rows, the stone lanterns glow softly, and somewhere, in the realm beyond, perhaps 48 spirits rest together, their long journey complete. Master and retainers reunited, the debt repaid, the circle closed, the story told, and told, and told again, as enduring as the mountains, as faithful as the turning seasons, as gentle as falling snow. And so the wind grows still. The temple bell rings once, twice, 3 times, carrying its note across the centuries, a sound like memory, like peace, like all things passing, and yet, somehow, remaining. Rest now, rest well, for all stories end where they began, in silence, in stillness, in the eternal present moment, where nothing is ever truly lost. The snow falls, the night deepens, and all is well, all is well, all manner of things are well.